this morning that looked as though they were not going to be able to get off.
1 minute, 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second.
Nancy and I are pained to the core by the tragedy of the Shuttle Challenger. We know we share this pain with all of the people of our country.
On January 28, 1986, in NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, NASA launched a shuttle that was supposed to carry the second data relay satellite into orbit. 73 seconds after the launch, the space shuttle blew apart due to pressure from the internal gases, causing the external tank to explode. 7 astronauts were killed due to the explosion. After this event, NASA halted the shuttle program. This tragedy also helped them learn to better equip their rockets in certain situations.
It is the 1980s. The first Space Shuttle Columbia lifts off in 1981. The hole in the ozone layer is first reported in 1985, and NASA is making incredible strides in space exploration with their shuttle program. NASA had a fleet before 1986 that included Columbia, Challenger, Atlantis, Enterprise, and Discovery.
Finally, the liftoff was set for 11:38. A crowd of some 500 spectators, including 18 visiting school children from McAuliffe's hometown of Concord, New Hampshire, waited anxiously and then counted down.
The liftoff of the Challenger was one of the most anticipated events in U.S. history. Millions of people were going to watch the takeoff and couldn't wait for the teacher, McAuliffe, and the other astronauts on board to be sent up. But tragedy struck, and people stared in disbelief as the shuttle broke up in a plume of smoke and fire. Millions watched as the heart-wrenching tragedy unfolded on live television. Many people were devastated to hear the news that the Challenger astronaut, Krista McAuliffe, a teacher from Boston, Massachusetts, that was selected to be the first American civilian to go to space, was killed in the incident. There were plans for her to teach a recorded school lesson from space for all the children around the U.S.
The last words captured by flight voice recorder were haunting from the voice of Francis Scobie. He said, "Go at the throttle up." 3 seconds later, pilot Michael Smith whispered, "Uh-oh." At the moment, all electronic data in the space shuttle was destroyed.
Activity generates heat, and so we have to have a radiator system to get rid of the heat on this part of the ship when it's up there flying by itself.
On the week before the launch of the shuttle, Krista McAuliffe was presented with a $1 million life insurance policy in honor of her role to be the first U.S. citizen to go to space. The policy was given by a space communications company called the Caroon and Black in Space. The policy would cover all injuries relating to the satellite itself and not the loss of the satellite.
It is believed that an O-ring seal had failed due to the extremely cold temperatures, allowing gas to escape, resulting in the failure of an orange rocket tank and the solid rocket booster. When the components mixed together, it resulted in the rocket coming apart in an explosion-like fashion. The night before the launch, an engineer named Bob Ebling and 4 other engineers at NASA tried to stop the launch, but they ignored them. That night, Bob told his wife, "It is going to blow up." As they watched it take off, and at 73 seconds into the flight, it did. Because of the cold temperatures, the rubber seal on the rocket boosters wouldn't seal properly. It was the coldest launch in history.
I was a 9th grader at high school whenever the Challenger disaster happened. We were watching as a class in the high school library, and it was a live feed from NASA, and we were able to watch on TV, and nobody was expecting anything eventful to happen, and we were just expecting a typical shuttle launch, but the reason we were all watching was because there was a teacher on board, and it was a little bit unusual compared to most of the typical launches. And so it was kind of a treat for us to get to watch the shuttle launch live, because it was something that usually happened while we were at school, and we didn't usually have access to watch the shuttle launches live because we were usually in class.
What was your classmates' reaction to it?
Everybody was really stunned at first and didn't understand what was happening. We'd all seen footage of shuttle launches in the past, so we knew generally what it looked like, and we'd seen them before. So we knew something was terribly wrong, and it took a few moments for it to really register how bad things had gone, and that the shuttle had basically exploded, and it was a disaster, and that they had lost the crew of the shuttle. And so it was really a very sad moment once everybody came to that realization.
What was your reaction to it?
Well, again, I was really initially, it took me a moment to understand what had happened, because I remember the explosion and thinking, wow, something's gone wrong. But it took a moment for it to register with me that there was a crew on board that had just lost their life, or had lost their life within moments of that explosion happening. And it was a very scary moment, and it was very thought-provoking, because there'd never been an accident like that before with the shuttle that I was aware of. And so knowing that those people had lost their lives was very, very terrible, and especially knowing there was a teacher on board.
Do you remember how the news reacted to it?
Yeah, it was a huge national and world event later that day, and in the weeks that ensued. And it really caused the world and NASA and everybody to kind of reevaluate space exploration and the shuttle project. And so it was a big event when the shuttle exploded, because it almost seemed like at that time, NASA was very comfortable sending shuttles to space. It happened very frequently during that period of time, and so that was a big change in the shuttle exploration process.
We learned from this Challenger to make shuttles better and safer. In Ronald Reagan's broadcast hours before the launch, he said, "The Challenger crew was pulling us into the future, and will continue to follow them."
The Challenger explosion was a traumatizing event for all people. Due to the incident, NASA halted the shuttle program, but the explosion of the Challenger had important lessons NASA could learn from. The technology and design of the shuttles needed to change to become safer for more successful space exploration. The explosion killed 7 astronauts, and the hard work and money that was put into the shuttle was lost. The Challenger tragedy is an event imprinted into the minds of millions of Americans. It seems like many Americans always remember where they were at the time of the disaster. The 7 astronauts that gave their lives in pursuit of space exploration will never be forgotten.